if I go down the Europeans, again, completely new world. I'm going to be happy just lining up, if I'm honest. If I can get there and if I can pull on the gear and stand, I think that was a huge boost for me in terms of, I remember speaking to someone at work and they said, how's that feel then? I said, it just feels amazing. And of course, now I'm this person who I actually managed to get in for the Europeans. Europeans got cancelled, so I thought I'll go for the world, in for a penny, in for a pound. That got cancelled. I got a selection for the cross tri champs. That got cancelled. So selected 3 times, competed none. So, it would be just nice to get a race in. That's what will be really good. And as far as that's concerned, I'm just going to go with it, finish with a huge smile and just love every minute of it. Going into a field with, other people who are at that different level. I've got no goals about where I'm going to come or anything like that. It will just be race hard, do my best, hopefully manage things well, and just enjoy every minute of it. And I think last year, the perspective from last year just made that even sharper. Just enjoy every single moment that you get because you don't know what's around the corner.
That's age grouper Sean Trimble, and this is Age Group Stories, brought to you by the Oxygenaddict Triathlon Podcast. Hello and welcome to the Oxygenaddict Triathlon Podcast. We're brought to you every week by our sponsors PrecisionHydration.com, electrolytes in different strengths that match how you sweat. You can get 15% off your first order with the code Oxygenaddict15. And we're also brought to you by GroupEvolution.com, luxury triathlon retreats with leading coaches, including Dave Scott, at an exclusive 19th century French chateau. Use the code Oxygenaddict15 for 15% off. That code's valid all the way through till Christmas Eve of this year. Right, everyone, I hope you're well. Got a cracking interview for you this week with age grouper Sean Trimble, as you'll have heard in the little intro there. Sean's a great guy. He's a head teacher. He's a triathlete. He's got a really calm sense of let's do what's right to get through lockdown. That really comes across well through this interview. It ended up being one of those interviews that, although Sean's a super keen age group triathlete, a lot of the interview is not actually about triathlon at all, but I think you'll get a lot from the stuff he talks about, his mindset and the way he approaches both his training and his everyday life. So look forward to that. But before that, we've got tons of stuff to talk through with you. But news and results brought to you by our sponsors, Precision Hydration. So a reminder here, you can book a free hydration call with them. There's a link in the show notes. Mention that you heard about it through the Oxygenaddict Triathlon Podcast, and you'll be entered into a draw to win a £50 Precision Hydration bundle. I love these guys. They make electrolytes in different strengths that match people being individuals. Excuse me. So some people are very heavy, salty sweaters. Some people not so much. So if you're like me, if you're a very salty sweater, I lose tons of sodium every time I get on the turbo. Excuse me. So I take their 1500 milligram sachets, and it's really effective at helping me not get cramp as I'm on the turbo. If I try and race or train, especially on the bike on the turbo without this stuff, my calves lock up, my lower gastrocs and my soleus lock up. It's awful. And when I take this stuff, it doesn't happen at all. So it's only anecdotal from me. I know there's evidence both ways in terms of whether electrolytes play a big role in cramp or not. But from a personal anecdote point of view, it really helps me out. So if you're going to be training a lot indoors over the coming months, over winter, and most of us are, let's be honest, well worth checking these guys out. So get over there, use the code Oxygenaddict15 for 15% off your first order. All right, so some news for you to kick things off. It is, I think a few of you might have seen this already, but the PTO have announced they've increased the prize fund by another $150,000 at the Pro Championships at Daytona. I've got an email here from Jamie at the organization, which is super interesting, actually. They've laid out the prize money at the PTO 2020 Championships in Daytona against Kona and against the 70.3 Worlds. First big news for the pros, and I think this is great. The pros are getting paid no matter where they finish at this race. People are not going to go home out of pocket for having raced. And let's be honest, there's been pretty slim pickings this year for most of the pros in terms of any opportunity to actually earn money. So everybody who finishes from 20th to 60th place, so the the last 40 places in the race, they're all going to go home with $2,500. So at least they're breaking even on the trip, which I think is fantastic. And it really raises your eyes to the fact that a lot of pros basically paying to play in a lot of the races that they do. If they don't finish in the top 10 or even, the top 5 in some of the races, they're going home not only not having earned anything, but having been out of pocket for travel and expenses and hotels and stuff. And there's a much smaller drop-off in this race than there is in other races. So the PTO are paying $100,000 for the winner of both the men's and the ladies' race, 70 for second, 50 for third. But even 10th place is still getting $17,000. If you compare that with Kona, it's 120 for the win, 60 for third, 40 for third place. 10th place is only getting $10,000, and there's nothing for 11th. 11th at Daytona is going to get $15,000. And probably a more like-for-like comparison is the one against the Ironman 70.3 Worlds. So the winner there gets 45, then it's 20 and 15. You're actually going to get more money as a pro finishing 11th at Daytona than you would finishing third at the Ironman 70.3 Worlds. At the 70.3 Worlds, you got $4,500 for finishing in 10th place. You're going to get more than that for finishing 19th at the PTO Championship. So it's going to attract a super competitive field, and I think it's really going to drive people to the line in terms of, the difference between 13th and 12th place is $2,000 extra. People are really going to be pushing hard for this. And I think we're really going to see some full-on racing. Not that we wouldn't have done anyway, but I think sometimes things that happen behind the scenes, once people drop out of the money, the pros don't have not only do they have a huge incentive to race and push hard, for the placings, but it's actually in their interest to either drop out or really sandbag the rest of the race and look at what's going to happen further down the line. So it's pretty commonplace for races like Ironman Cozumel that happen after Kona to be very stacked fields, because people are firstly trying to qualify for next year, but also there's people who haven't performed well in Kona who've either dropped out on the run or dropped out before the run or really gone, sandbagged the run to save themselves for those next events. I think in this particular instance, because it's the only race happening, people are going to be going hard anyway. But also it's a really good way to encourage that competitive racing all the way down to, in this case, it's going to be all the way down to 20th place. So that'll be very, very interesting to see. And when we're looking at the British interest for people that are qualified for the Daytona race, on the men's side, we've got 9. On the ladies' side, we've got 15. The men's side, we've got Ali Brownlee, Joe Skipper, David McNamee, George Goodwin, Adam Bowden, Tim Don, Johnny Brownlee, Kieran Linders, and Tom Davis. Whether all of them will race or not is in doubt, but they're the ones who are qualified at the moment. I think a lot of it will depend on, travel bans and quarantine needs and things like that from different countries in Europe. On the women's side, we've got Lucy Charles-Barkley, Holly Lawrence, Emma Pallant, Kim Morrison, Laura Siddle, India Lee, Kat Matthews. Great to see that she's got in on the roll down. Fenella Langridge, Georgia Taylor-Brown got a wild card. Jess Lermonth got a wild card. Lucy Hall got a wild card. Simone Mitchell, the winner of Ironman Wales, got a wild card. And then recently we've had private invitations for Nikki Bartlett, Ruth Astle, and Jodie Stimpson. So really a who's who of, certainly on the ladies' side, a who's who of 70.3 talent on the pro women's side. And obviously loads of the really big names on the men's side as well. So great to see all those names on the start list. It'll be really interesting. And I'm very hopeful for the number of people actually who are going to be able to travel and race there. I know the PTO are working hard behind the scenes in terms of getting exemptions from quarantine and exemptions for travel and the paperwork side of things. So fingers crossed all that goes through smoothly. And there's tons of stuff being offered by them as well in terms of virtual press conferences. So I'm quite hopeful we might be able to bring you some interviews with athletes in the run up to that event as well. So yeah, watch this space. Other racing results we've got coming up this weekend is going to be Ironman Florida. This is happening this coming weekend as we speak. Male race participants, I was having a nosy through who's registered for this. Big old field on the men's side. There's got 20-odd men registered and 15, 16 women. We've got Cody Beals, Brent McMahon, Matt Hansen, Andy Dreitz, Chris Lieferman, Matt Russell. So some real big names. Joe Gambles is on there, David Please, Sam Long. It's going to be good racing. And if you remember, This is the race that Joe Skipper won last year in that head-to-head with Ben Hoffman. He went 7:46 to take the win and 7:48 for Ben Hoffman. Skipper ran a 2:39 to close it and 2:36 for Ben Hoffman. So very, very fast course in the right conditions. Neither of those two guys down to race this one. Over on the women's side, British interest, we've got Kat Matthews racing and also Ruth Astle. So good to see them over there. We've also got some big names on the women's side. We've got Jocelyn McCauley, Heather Jackson, Skye Mensch, Meredith Kessler, all down to race as well. So it's going to be very competitive racing over on that side. Okay, then that's our news and not results, but news about what's coming up, which is good stuff. Looking forward to watching how Ironman Florida goes this week, and I'm really looking forward to Daytona and seeing that race happen. It's going to be great. All right, now, just before we go into this week's interview of the week, I want to give a shout out to our new sponsors who you'll have heard at the start of the show, Group Evolution. They put on triathlon retreats in a 19th century French chateau. It's a really cool looking place, a proper old school castle. It's got its own moat. It's got its own 25-meter pool. It's got an open water venue nearby, a running track nearby, beautiful quiet roads for riding on, great food, ride support. I've lined up a couple of triathlon camps for my athletes that I coach there next year. And while you can't book onto those, you can book onto camps with other coaches, including Dave Scott, the man himself, who you'll have heard on the show a few weeks back. He's going to be running 2 camps from the 8th to the 14th of April and the 15th to the 21st of April. So I believe it's the first camps he's done outside of the USA. So certainly for our European audience, British audience, fantastic opportunity to go and train and be coached by Dave Scott, the man himself. I really like this place. We've chosen to use it for our team camps for next year because we don't have to fly to get there, essentially. You can go on the tunnel in your own car. It's about a 4-hour drive, I think maybe a bit less, from Calais, the Eurotunnel thing at the other side. And they've got a fantastic COVID guarantee, which you'll need to go onto their website and check out. But basically it says, if you can't go because you've got COVID, you've got to isolate for whatever reason, you get your money back. So obviously go on there and read the details of that guarantee. But we're absolutely convinced Barry, who put the place together, is a great guy. We've really enjoyed talking and working with him. All of our worries about putting a camp on we had for next year were answered by him. And the place just looks stunning. It looks, I mean, people say this, but it looks absolutely amazing. We can't wait to go. So if you fancy training with Dave Scott, you can get over there and check it out. There's a link in the show notes. You can go direct via groupevolution.com, but click the link in the show notes. They'll take you directly to Dave Scott's camps. If you book before the 24th of December of this year, you can get 15% off using the code Oxygenaddict15. So yeah, give yourself something to look forward to. Get over there and check it out. Right, over into this week's interview with Sean Trimble. Okay, Sean, welcome to the show. It's lovely to have you on to join us. How are things with you today?
Yeah, pretty good. Thanks for having me. It's been a busy day with the announcement from yesterday, as you would expect, as I'm sure lots of people have been very busy. So sort of working through the detail of that and just trying to look ahead and, hopefully manage a pathway through the next few weeks for everybody is sort of been a priority today.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I'll set the scene a bit. We're recording on Sunday. Saturday, obviously, Boris has made his announcement that everyone in the country is going back into lockdown. So tell us a little bit about yourself and your life and your role and what you do professionally to kind of pad out why the weekend has been particularly busy for you.
Yeah. So I'm an executive head teacher of a special school trust in Hertfordshire. And we've got 2 schools, a primary and a secondary. And we've also got a school within the primary school, which is very unique, which really sort of caters for very autistic children and their particular needs, because we have a range of needs within our schools. But we do have a group of children with autism. So we've got a school within the school, and we also provide an outreach service for a lot of the primary schools within our town. There's about 25, so we do go out and try and pass on good practice and stuff like that as well. So it's really looking at what we're going to do over the next few weeks and really, trying to almost work out the sort of questions that people are going to have come tomorrow morning when they walk through the door again. And thankfully, from a personal point of view, I'm glad that schools are remaining open. It's something that I feel very passionate about. I think we're in a place, certainly where we are, that we can do that with a small degree of confidence now. No doubt the ride is still going to be very bumpy, as it is going to be for the whole country. But I'm glad that we're going to have our youngsters coming in through the door each day, because we want them there basically, and they want to be with us. So.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. So your school caters for kids. Is it mainly children? You said you've got your autistic school within the school. Are the rest of the children, is it an EBD school, sort of emotional and behavioural difficulties?
Yeah. So it's social, emotional, and mental health is the official tag now.
Right. Okay.
But within that tag, there are very, very there's a wide range of different needs for the children. I think the way that we tend to talk about our clientele is that most of our kids have for some reason or other been dealt a really poor set of cards. And there's a variety of reasons that might have caused that, whether it's something to do with something that's gone on within home, family situations, sometimes not really being understood within their mainstream settings, or just because it's a class of 30 and trying to deal with that with a particular individual in the class is clearly very tough. So we get a lot of youngsters who come to us who have been deschooled. In effect, they've been out of the system, or they've been in a corridor for a while and educated separately from their peers. They may have refused to go in full stop for a variety of reasons. So we have this sort of two-pronged attack when we first meet with children and parents, and it's about restoring faith for the child in that you can come here, you can succeed, you can enjoy yourself, you can have a bit of fun back in a school situation, which they probably haven't had for a long time. And we also have to connect with parents and actually restore a bit of faith with them as well, and say, look, the system hasn't maybe worked as well as you would like so far, but we think we can get things back on track. Let's give it a chance and see where we go. And usually we do okay with that.
Wow. Okay. So pretty busy, difficult, stressful, long hours, I would imagine, a lot of the time for an executive head of two schools.
Yeah, it's busy. It's busy, but I like to be busy. It certainly keeps you on your toes. I think that's fair to say. But it's a hugely rewarding role to. I'm very privileged. I know that I'm very privileged. I'm very lucky to be in the job that I'm in, and for all of the stuff that goes on with it, the bureaucracy, the politics, and everything else. You can't get away from the amazing changes that you see with those youngsters when they spend a bit of time with you through the school, through working with some incredible staff that we've got, and the resources and the way that we structure things. It suits those guys so much better than what they used to have in their mainstream schools. And you see the lights come on, that light bulb moment that you get in teaching, you see that with children. When I'm visiting classes, you can see them fully engaged for the first time, that, it might be a word, construction of a word, construction of a sentence, or a full paragraph, or whatever it might be. You just have, those things are still going in day by day, even with everything that's happened and all the adaptations that we've had to make. The kids are still the shining light, and the staff that work with them do incredible stuff on a day-to-day basis.
And as a man who's extremely busy with work already and managing two schools in a pandemic, why not keep yourself even busier by chucking long distance triathlon and is it Ironman Ireland next year? Is that what you've settled on in the end? Is that the big shot for next year, or have you not quite decided yet?
It's in the calendar, but as I sort of posted, the European Duathlon Champs are now on the same date. I thought I'd got lucky recently, because there was a thread that came out, and one of the team tagged me into it saying that it'd been moved. The European Duathlon Champs had been moved to April, but nothing officially has come out. So, at the moment, I'm just going to get my head down and train and hedge my bets according to how things pan out, really.
Yeah.
There's going to be probably 4 weeks now with no swimming, I guess. But I'm tempted to fill up the pool just to try and get in some water. Swimming is not my best aspect of the whole thing, but so I'm just going to see what happens, and then hopefully bide my time. And closer to this time, maybe plump for it, because I think the training, hopefully, with your advice, hopefully the training will see me fit for whichever route I go down.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. No question with that. Well, tell us a bit about your triathlon journey then. How did you end up in the sport in the first place?
Well, it's an interesting one because I actually did my first one over 30 years ago. So when I went to the College of St Mark St John, Mar Johns in Plymouth, back in 1985, which makes me very old, I know. And I was in a cohort which was really small. I did a phys ed degree, a bit of geography, and we were a very small group of people who were all doing their degrees. And a lecturer came over from New Zealand, and I think it was in my second year, and he decided to put on a quadrathon.
Okay.
The canoeing bit was in there, as well as the pool, swim, cycle, and the run. And I was in a cohort with a chap called a one Richard Hobson, who you
Really?
may know.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. We're in the same year group, and he and I both decided, along with a couple of other guys from college, that year we both decided we as a group of us did the first ever Plymouth Half Marathon, and then a small group. I think it was only me, Rich, and one other decided that we were going to do the quadrathon, and we went through the whole year. And did the training, the rest of it. And we're very different backgrounds, the two of us. I mean, Rich, I was very much from team sports, and I'd gone through playing rugby up until that point, and continued playing sort of post uni for a while. Whereas Rich came from much more an individual side of things. I think he was a kite surfer and had done that to a really high level, and sort of started to do a bit of the team stuff when he came to Mar Johns. But he was a good swimmer back then, and all that sort of stuff as well. So we both trained for that. We both did it. And I think, from memory, I could have this wrong. I think he finished second to a local guy, and I think the locals guy, his surname may have been Leonard, Terry Leonard, sort of all springs to mind. I don't know whether or not he was a good triathlete at the time. I didn't take a lot of notice, to be honest. And I think I came maybe fourth or fifth, and I was over the moon with that. And then I just stopped doing it, and obviously he carried on. And that was the year that he suddenly turned into captain quad, because he went away in the summer and just cycled his backside off, and just came back with these amazing quads. So he carried on from there, and went. When we left, he went into full-time triathlon, and I went into full-time teaching. And I didn't even look at it again until I hit 50, to be honest.
Right.
And then
Okay.
and I don't know why. Now looking back at it, I don't know why, because I was the sort of person who was reasonably okay at most sports, but never really brilliant at any one of them. And I spread myself thin. I like to do a lot of it. And thinking about it, now it would have made a lot of sense to probably, do that back then. But I continued with team sports. I continued playing rugby until about 29. And then I switched to hockey. I hadn't played hockey before. I'd had a couple of goes in goal for college and stuff like that, and thought it was a bit of fun. So I gave that, and I played that for a while. And I'd done some running all the way through. I'd always been doing some half marathons, because the Plymouth one I really loved. Had a really good run there. So I kept going with that, and dotted those out. And I came across cycling probably in the 90s. I was working in Harlow, and a couple there who were working in the science department were mad cyclists. They'd cycle everywhere. If they didn't need the car, they would have just got rid of it. And they decided to start up a sore bum club, and I'm sure there's been lots of them started up, throughout the country. And they would come up with these harebrained schemes that we would do in a half term. And I think probably the most memorable one was the Harlow to Monaco cycle tour.
Wow.
So this was one half term. So we were starting off from Harlow, and basically we're going to finish in Monaco. And one of the pair who were organising, one would cycle, the other one would drive the minibus and do all of that sort of stuff. And it was epic. It was it's got to be 800 plus miles, I think. And it seemed like it was really long days in the saddle. But I can remember thinking, actually, the first few days were bloody awful. And then it sort of got a little bit better as you went on. Okay, I'm sort of getting used to it now. I guess the body adapted over sort of 4 or 5 days. But I think the bit that sticks out again with that is that we'd finished. We were in Monaco, and I think we'd tried to go down and get the and also stuff. To meet the guy who was driving the mill, and he'd come down the hill to take pictures of us as we were going up the hill, sort of the last leg and all the rest of it. And I looked up and saw John taking the pictures, but someone was in the minibus. And I sort of turned because we were pedaling. I said, John, who's in the bus then? If you're here, who's in the bus? I've got no idea. So suddenly the cycling that we were plodding up the hill after God knows how many miles just turned into an all-out sprint to try and get up to the minibus. He put everything in his bag and just legged it up the hill. And the minibus was being broken into as we were finishing off the cycle tour. So we managed to get there and basically surround the bus and keep these two guys penned in until the police came. Gendarmerie turned up. And I can remember these guys were a bit lippy and giving it a bit large. And this police officer just pulled out his gun and pointed at this. Yeah, I mean, this guy was on his knees, his hands on his head. I couldn't understand what he was saying. I think he may have been Moroccan or something like that. But he was shooting off his mouth, and the police officer just pulled out his gun and pointed at him. And we all backed away, and this guy suddenly became very quiet. But that's basically how the cycle tour finished off. It was a completely unexpected moment that sort of rounded that off. So we did various ones. I think we did an east to west of Great Britain. I think that was probably to try and reduce a bit of the mileage after the year before, really, because that was quite an epic one. And then we all moved on and went different directions and all the rest of it. And I kept a bit of hockey going. I kept a bit of running going. And then eventually finished with the hockey. Family took over. Work, the hours became increasingly longer, really, with responsibility going up with deputy headship. I did a stint in London and was commuting for a while. So that was pretty tough in terms of the longer days. And then, I got to, I guess, turning 50, and I just thought, what can I do? I've been hit by loads of injuries. I was trying to get my running back, really, but every time I tried to do some interval stuff or, do some sprint work or some hill work or whatever it was, I seemed to just pick up a niggly calf and back to square one again.
Yeah, of course.
So I thought, I'll give triathlon a go. It's the sort of thing that you do when you hit 50, isn't it? You give something a go like that. So, I signed up for a sprint, managed to get through that okay, and then I got injured again. So I think when I was, sort of 50, I did maybe two races, and then into 52, which is my second year. I think I did one race, which was very, very slow and easy because I was still worried about being injured. And then I decided I was going to go along, and I came across yourself and thought, oh, hang on a minute, talking about running slower to get faster, that's got to make sense for me. And that's when I entered for Staffordshire, which I did in 2018, I think it was.
Yeah, that's right. I think you've been with us since sort of November 17, haven't you? So that sounds about right. Yeah. Yeah,
that would be right. Yeah. And then, and Staffordshire was a huge learning journey in so many ways. And I think that's what I love about it, because there's so many bits that you pick up in terms of, what you can do, how you can approach things, how you can combine what you're doing with your training and your work life and family life and all the rest of it. You become the consummate juggler of everything, and you have to work out some sort of system that, you can put in place and keep to. And the consistency element I really, really like. If you can get those things done, it's so much better for your well-being, so much better for your processes of trying to compete as well as you can and perform as well as you can. But Staffordshire was probably not a great way of introducing myself to the long distance stuff, because on that day, I don't know if you remember, but that race was when the fog came in just as everyone was lining up for the swim.
Yes, of course, and it all got delayed, didn't it?
It got delayed. I think it was by over an hour, and there was talk about whether the swim was going to go on at all. And then, the swim then went off, and I hadn't clocked quite how far apart everything was in Staffordshire in terms of your drop-off points the day before. So I wasted so much energy in terms of nerves and doing steps that I shouldn't have been doing the day before. It's a complete daft approach, really. But we eventually got the swim started, and then there was a whole host of accidents on the start of the cycle leg. So I got held in transition for, it felt like an eternity because they were just picking people up off the floor. And again, I then started on the cycle leg, and it seemed like almost every mile, half a mile for the first bit, which was really narrow and windy, you were coming across someone who'd had an off, and you slow it down, saying, "Are you okay? Do you need some help?" There was someone always there, but sort of got through that, and I was thinking, "Oh my God, I'm still on my bike. What's going on?" And I finished the race, and I've got I think again I've shared with the team the picture of me finishing the race in my first year compared to my second year, and it's night and day. I think I literally took one step over the line and didn't quite collapse, but it was like, thank God that was over. It was really, really draining. But I don't think that was from a physical point of view. I think it was from all the mental energy that I'd gone through that had just almost wiped me out, really. And then 2019 was a really great year in terms of I did Nottingham and I did Holcombe. I'm trying to think if I did anything in the middle. I think I might have done some smaller stuff in the middle, and certainly everything there just sort of clicked. There are always improvements to be made, but everything worked almost as well as I wanted it to, and felt good on the run coming off it. I think I knocked 45 minutes off my PB from the year before, which was nothing to sort of take really the year before because it was such a unique race environment. But and coming over the line at Nottingham, I just felt in a different place. I felt okay. This is quite good, actually. I seem to have the energy system sorted out by then. So that gave me a lot of confidence. Finished off with the duathlon in October, which I managed to get the qualification for the age group thing on, which was really great. And again, I think that's with the mindset thing. I took that one on. It was the end of the season race, and I had it was a fairly local race. It was up in Bedfordshire, and the nerves just weren't there. It was, let's go on and just have some fun and see what happens. And it sort of clicked into place. So I think there's a bit of a message there for me, really. I've just got to keep it nice and calm going into these things.
It does seem like that you have better races in the ones where, I think stressed is the wrong word, but that kind of nervous energy before the event can really deplete your physical energy, can't it? And if you can hold on to that. Yeah,
hugely. And I think, lots of those common anxieties. So, the swim isn't my best bit at all. And the mass start is always, I come from a rugby playing background, but I can breathe. I could breathe when I was playing rugby, and I didn't mind a ruck or a maul. But in the water, it's slightly different. And getting a knock or an elbow isn't quite so concerning, but it's getting into that rhythm with lots of people around you and making sure you're in the right pen and all that sort of stuff. So it's managing all of that. But I think that's where, I guess that's where elements of the day job come into play as well, because I like the fact that there's very few things that are the same walking around on the day job. You've got your scheduled meetings and the rest of it, but you go on a walk around the school, you're never quite sure what you're going to walk into, what you're going to see, what questions you're going to be asked by some of the kids or the staff and that sort of stuff. So I like that. And there's an element of that within the sort of race scenario, isn't there? You want to be as consistent as you can. You want to try and control those things that you can, but you've also got to be able to take the uncontrollable bits that are going to happen. Whether there's an issue with a bike, or you get that knock in the swim, or you don't feel great at some point in time. All of those things could happen at any time, and it's those bits that really intrigue me about how you then manage those. What do you do? What sort of things do you draw upon? And I think that's the bit that I really quite enjoy in a sort of dark and dodgy way, I guess.
Almost kind of unpicking the mental challenge of the unknown.
Yeah, because absolutely. And like I say, you can get that really good, consistent blocks of training, and you can be thinking, I've got this. I'm on the line, and I've got this, which is how you should be starting. But I think you've also got to have that plan B ready for when plan B is needed. And again, it's having that little person on your shoulder who kicks in and says, you've still got this. It's plan B or plan C, and you've still got it. You can still handle this, just think, just breathe, or whatever you might do. You've gone through it before, you've changed a wheel before, you've done a puncture, whatever it might be. So, deal with it as you deal with it, and then get back racing, which is really easy to say, but is a little bit more tricky when you're in it.
Well, the thing I love about these age group interviews is that's the kind of mindset that if people can adopt is really going to help them. And I think people can adopt it. It's worth spending some time ruminating on the fact that nobody's really born a calm person. People kind of adapt systems and they adapt things they've heard from other people and think we're very sort of like magpies in that way. I think we see a shiny new thought and think, well, I really like that new thought. I'm going to try and adopt that a little bit. And I think you're dead right. You can have a puncture, and I've had both situations, like the first one where I've shouted and yelled at the bike. Funnily enough, that didn't help the puncture get changed any faster. Yeah. I've been caught behind a car on a bike and shouted at the back of the car. And I've also stayed really cool and calm and afterwards reflected that, well, the cool and calm way seems to, it certainly doesn't work any slower or any faster. And I'm a bit prouder of myself afterwards when I work at it that way. So maybe there's something to be said for modeling somebody else's behavior when they model calm leadership.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, and I think there's this tie-in with the day job again, because we have a lot of youngsters who've come through the door and they're expecting, I think, almost a struggle from day one. They step through the door. It hasn't really worked before, so it's going to be a struggle. It's a mindset again that they've got, and the amazing people that work within our trust, who are really well trained and are always looking at what will work, what won't work, how do we change things, how do we adapt things. We have a daily reflection process where we come together at the end of every day when we can, apart from when we've got some designated training, and we talk about what's gone well for whoever and what we should therefore repeat. What hasn't got well, so don't repeat it. And we also have this bit where we talk about golden moments, and I think that's right now you need golden moments, and golden moments are those bits that I referred to earlier, where Johnny's come in and today Johnny formed the letter F, or he did a 2-digit sum, or he scored a goal or created a bit of artwork or whatever it might be that he's never done before. And we have to share them with each other, because it gives you a bit of sunshine every single day, and obviously share that with the children as well in terms of how well they're doing and what a step forward it is, and how challenging it might have been with them. Lots of them haven't dealt well with being unsuccessful, and maybe they think that they've been a bit of a failure in an educational setting. They haven't had the friends that they'd like and all that sort of stuff. So by changing that mindset gradually, day by day, again, it's this consistency thing. No matter what happens, we're still here. Whether it's the next hour, the next day, the next week, we're not going away. And by the way, youngsters, you're not going away from us until you leave. That's another message we get across, really instantly. You're not leaving us. You're staying with us, and we're staying with you, because they've had lots of change. So I think, again, you think about when you sort of decompartmentalize a race, and I think about Staffordshire and how so many things seem to go wrong almost one after the other. I then sat down, as I do, and you have that reflection, and what actually did go well. And bottom line was I crossed the finish line. That was my first ever 70.3, and actually, with all of that stuff that happened, I got through it. I guess again, I drew from that, and I thought, well, it's got to be, the chances of that all happening again in another race have got to be pretty slim, to be honest. I might get a bit of bad weather. I might get, sort of, you might see the odd person having an off and need to help or whatever else. But all of those things coming together are not going to happen again. Of course, the bit that I directed for myself was I wasn't going to do a split transition race again ever. Yes. I'm just not going to do that again. I'm going to take control of that bit, and I don't have to choose one. I'm going to have it all central, so I don't have to walk God knows how many miles to try and sort that all out. And then the rest of the bits, as they happen, I'll be prepared for as well as I can. I'll have that plan B in the back of my head, and pull it out of the hat if I need it. But thankfully, the season after, I really didn't need it. It sort of all went really well. So I'm touching wood, thinking as I go into next year, and hopefully it'll be the same. But who knows? It'll be just nice to race at the moment.
Yeah, ain't that the truth? All right, A blunt question for you. Do you think completing your first 70.3 changed you? Did it change your image of yourself?
Oh, okay. That's an interesting one. Yeah, I guess it did. Haven't really thought about that in that way. I think it gave me a level of confidence, again, which I had to unpick because I was just so pleased just to step over that line. It gave me that level of confidence to keep going with it. I'd had this period where I was injury free, which is really important to me because of the niggles that I'd had. And yeah, I think after, it's a funny thing, isn't it? There's the sort of, you have those difficult times, and time helps to sort of dim your view on how difficult it was. So I think after the first week, when the aches and pains had gone and you start to think down and really go through what happened, immediately my head started almost turning, okay, what's next? And then the 70.3 or, go full Ironman debate comes up and all the rest of it. But yeah, I think it probably affirmed a lot of things that I believed that I could do. And it gave me a platform, I think. I think that was the most important thing for me. It gave me a platform that I could go on to do more things in the future with a level of confidence that clearly I didn't have because I'd never done one before. And through all of that, sort of chopping and changing and the bit of adversity that suddenly got thrown at me, I thought, yeah, okay, it can happen, but I seem to be okay with this when I do my work. So if I can do this in a race situation, I know lots of other people will find those sorts of things quite tricky, as we all do, but it's how you deal with them at the time and how resourceful you are. I think, it's about being resilient, isn't it? I think in so many ways. And I think triathletes are a very resilient bunch of people because you get so much thrown at you. And my hat is off to everybody who juggles their work life and their training commitments and family and COVID-19. There's so much going on. It takes an awful lot, but it can be done. And I think the rewards and the smiles and the team high fives in a virtual world, and a sense, they're just great. Absolutely fantastic.
So follow up to that then, do you think that the confidence that you got from doing the race fed into your professional life, or do you think that the confidence you had in your professional life fed into your ability to do the event? Or is it a circle?
Yeah, I guess it goes both ways. I think, a bit of both, I think, is the honest answer there. I tend to be someone who, I don't lose my rag, to be honest with you. It's very, very rare. And I think the staff would back that up. I don't tend to go down that route. And again, I try to model the behavior and the sort of qualities that anybody who said, oh, what was a good head teacher look like? I try and be that person, really, in whatever way it's right at the time and the context, because there isn't a one size fits all model. And as an athlete, I try to take the same sort of thing. It's that consistency of practice, that being quite analytical of what you do. Power data and the cycling stuff was completely new to me, but I find all of that completely fascinating. And going into that world and finding out what you can do with the testing, and how you can then apply that in a race, and how there's this sort of critical phase and percentage that you can push up to and maybe get away with without going into the red for too long. Otherwise, it's going to hurt you on the run. It's all of that sort of stuff, which you also see in lots of ways because there's so many dynamics going on within a school situation and across the trust that you have to balance those things out. And you have to make sure that, I guess, with your energy and your racing, I made the mistake of devoting a lot of wasted energy into that mental stuff on the day before staffs, whereas I didn't do it when I approached Nottingham and Holcombe. I still had the nerves, so I always will, and I appreciate those. And it's the same thing within a work event. I think if I went in tomorrow and I was full of woe and panic about what was going on, that will rub off on people. But I won't, because I think we've got a job to do, and I think we're in a good place in terms of what's going on within our trust. We've got some good systems and processes. We've involved the staff with all of that think, you've got to be very open and transparent with it all and communicate. Talk to Vicky about almost over communicating, using so many different ways, whether it's the personal, the online, virtual staff meetings, all of that sort of stuff. You just got to keep that information exchange going, because people have questions that they don't think of in the staff meeting and come up the next day, 24 hours later. So you've got to keep that exchange going, and that helps people in terms of whatever anxieties they've got and where they're coming from. And they're going to sort of go up and down as we go through the roller coaster of the next few weeks, as we have done over the last 6 months now.
Mm.
Okay, you still there, Rob? I think I lost you there.
Yeah, there we go. We're back again. We'll keep it rolling. It's just one of those little glitches. We're maxing out our bandwidth here, mate. I think it's really great that they're keeping schools open this time for two reasons. I think the staff really need to be in with the kids. Every teacher you talk to, they want to be in school. It's like, I remember years ago coaching a rugby team, and one of our lads got picked for England. And one of the other lads said, I'm not surprised they picked him for England because he wants the ball. Like you've got to, no matter what happens, no matter how big the opposition is, they want the ball. And almost every teacher I've ever met is like that. They want to be in the classroom with the kids. The kids are better in the classroom doing their usual routine. That's going to be much better for their mental health. And I think the difference this time is the entire country isn't trying to be at home, trying to be a teacher off no training, trying to teach their own kids, failing miserably from their own standards of, there must have been 5 million mums and dads ready to drink gin at lunchtime on a Tuesday in that last lockdown. And I think we've all got to keep a view of the fact that's not going to happen this time. And that's all through keeping the schools open. So teachers are happier, kids are happier. That's going to knock on to the parents, I think. And it's all going to feel very different this time through, I hope and expect.
Yeah, the same. Yeah, absolutely. I agree 100% with that. I think we are in a different place now compared to where we were. We do know a bit more. Although it's always difficult to try and unpick some of the information and know what's factual, not what's not factual, and so on and so forth. But absolutely, in terms of kids being in, I can remember when we first sort of locked down, and we were losing staff day by day. Because they suspected they had it, or someone in their family had it, and they were doing the right thing. They were going to self-isolate. They didn't want to spread the virus. And we got to a point where we just couldn't run. So I took this decision, and both of our schools were the same. We were losing people like flies. So I guess most schools were. And we just said, okay, we've got to stop here. We can't run safely. We're going to have to close down, and we're going to have to do it to give ourselves time for people to come back. And of course, we're talking about 14 days for isolation purposes. So 2 weeks was the time span that we chose. And it will haunt me to the day that I probably die, that we had one young lad go out the door in tears because he thought he wasn't coming back. Yeah. Of course, we've been giving him these messages about how, you're with us, we're staying with you. And, until you're year 6 and you go on, we're together. And no one's going anywhere, because that's how we work here. And, the first thing I was just thinking about is how we get, and I wanted to give him a big hug, to be honest with you. But of course, again, you couldn't. And I think I probably did in the end, because I just thought, he needs an arm around him, this lad at the time. And it was just words that, it's okay. We're going to be back together. We've got to do this. It's all that reassurance to try and put it into a perspective that he could understand. And then again, the great people that work within the trust, they started to think about, well, how do we solve that sort of issue? We need to start communicating with them. We need to pick up the phone, which we can still do, or we need to, get online and use Teams or whatever medium, just to show our faces and make contact, because they're going to need that. Just say hello, how are you? And then we started to roll into the online. We picked up with the online learning very quickly, which again was great. And I sort of restructured our team, and rather than having our sort of traditional responsibilities, we knew that we were going to have some children back very quickly. So someone became in charge of the physical side of the school, and someone became in charge of the virtual side of things. And we got the staff, some staff could come in, some staff couldn't because of shielding and all that sort of. So we had to manage all of these complexities, but we got people engaging with building up virtual lessons straight away. And we've got over 300 lessons on YouTube now. We have our own YouTube page, and the staff just took to it. We asked them to get involved. We talked about the protocols involved in it. And there was a little group that formed to discuss how that would work, and that just started to roll. And again, it brings a huge smile to my face. We have staff who will do the dressing up, or do other things. We had other members of staff who maybe didn't have a full-time teaching role, and they were a support, but they would read a story, which of course the children would get in the classroom. And then the beauty of that is a parent could choose to use it in the day, during the evening, to help them go off to sleep or whatever else. And that worked for the vast majority of our youngsters. We did have some who just didn't want to go near YouTube because it wasn't the same. It wasn't what they normally get, and they were finding it really hard to understand that. So, we would send out some physical work for them. We had to drop off a couple of laptops to children who didn't have the right gear. But you just have to personalize it and adapt very quickly as best you can in terms of those circumstances. And terrific, amazing group of people who work in the trust who just did that so brilliantly.
It's inspirational, mate. It really is. I'm tearing up listening to you.
It's a special place. It's a very special place.
It sounds it. Yeah, I'd love to visit one day. It sounds pretty amazing.
You'd be welcome.
Let's bring it back around to triathlon to wrap this up. Let's look forward to the happy summer of 2021. I want to create this image in everyone's mind because it's going to be awesome. Events are going to be back on. We're going to get to do the racing. We're all going to show up with wetsuits that don't fit and have a go anyway, right?
Why not?
What would be a successful year for you in terms of balancing work, balancing family, balancing racing? Whether you do, the Europeans this year or you do Ironman Cork this year, what would a successful year be if you get to the end of August and reflect back?
It would be nice to have been able to take part in all the races that are in the diary, first and foremost. I think that's the starting point at the moment. If we get through to the spring and it's looking like that's likely, then my mindset will change in terms of sort of the processes that I want to go through and achieve with those races. And I think that's going to be tricky this year because most of us haven't raced at all. Maybe done some virtual stuff, so it's really hard to base it on anything from last year. So I'm going to have to think about what they are. A key one for me at the moment, from a swim point of view, if I'm going to do Ireland, I want to try and nail bilateral breathing. I haven't done it yet. I'm working on it. I have been working on it. I'm going to take a break from it now for obvious reasons, but I've been working on it and sort of getting there slowly but surely. So I'd love to be able to race doing that. And I can't, I certainly can't at the moment. In terms of the bike to run, if I do the full Ironman, it's going to be a completely new world for me, which would be great because, again, it will bring all of those unknowns that I'm going to have to deal with. That I've done one marathon, did a London Marathon, I think it was 94. And I had it was everything came together really nicely for me. Held myself back. I targeted a negative split and I managed to do a negative split. And I got completely, where most people I think are finding the hard end of the last part of the race really tricky. I just got into the zone with what was going on. I was taken away with the rush of the atmosphere, I think, so much so that I had a group of people supporting me, my wife, friend from work, and and the kids are all there, and they've been dragged from one point in London to the other. And I think it was about mile 20 or 21, and they're all standing there shouting at me. They saw me from a long way, and I just didn't hear them at all until one of them just went, "Oi, Trimble!" And I thought, "Oh, hello." They go, "Come on, Sean." And I went, "Oi, Trimble!" And then suddenly, "Oh, there you are." And then just sort of carried on. But yeah, so in a way, I'd like to be able to finish that strongly. I think, in a good shape, not like in a end of staff race shape. I like to finish in an end of Holcombe or a end of Nottingham type state. And I know it'll be different, but sort of relatively speaking, if I go down the Europeans, again, completely new world. I'm going to be happy just lining up, if I'm honest. If I can get there and if I can pull on the gear and stand, I think that was a huge boost for me in terms of being able to get a race, get a performance, get selected. I never thought that would happen, at all, really, in a way. But I thought there was always, there might be a chance. You always dream of it, don't you? Really, but there might be a chance. And to get that, I remember speaking to someone at work, and they said, how's that feel then? I said, it just feels amazing. And of course, now I'm this person who I actually managed to get in for the Europeans. Europeans got cancelled, so I thought I'll go for the Worlds, bugger it. In for a penny, in for a pound. That got cancelled. I got a selection for the cross tri champs. That got cancelled. So selected 3 times, competed none. So, it would be just nice to get a race in. That's what will be really good. And as far as that's concerned, I'm just going to go with it. I'm just going to roll with it. And just that if that happens, it will just be, finish with a huge smile and just love every minute of it. And that goes for all the races, obviously. But I've got a bit of history with the other stuff. So going into a field with, other people who are at that different level, I've got no goals about where I'm going to come or anything like that. It will just be race hard, do my best, hopefully manage things well, and just enjoy every minute of it. And I think last year, the perspective from last year just made that even sharper. Just enjoy every single moment that you get, because you don't know what's around the corner.
Nice. Do you know what, man? That seems like a pretty good place to leave it. That's the thought of the podcast right there. That's going to be the trail at the start of the show, I think.
Okay. I'll leave that with you.
All right, Sean, listen, thank you so much for your time, man.
No worries. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Okay, I hope you enjoyed that story, that interview. There's a lot more life in that one than there was triathlon, really. I wanted to get Sean on because I find him a fantastically interesting chap, and I love his approach to being a head teacher. I love his approach to his staff. I heard him interviewed on another podcast, and I was just struck by how calm he was, how measured he was, and how supportive he was of his staff. Really, he seemed to exude this kind of confidence that his staff were brilliant people and they were doing a great job, and he had terrific confidence in them to do a job really well. And that really comes across, I think, in his interview about how he has confidence in himself to do the right things at the right time in races. And I really hope that if you're listening to this, you got something from that. And, as we alluded to in the conversation, I think it is possible for us sometimes to hear what other people say and to think, I wish I was a little bit more like that. I wish I was a little bit calmer in difficult situations. And I'm hoping that Sean's example of how to stay calm amidst the madness of a 70.3 start to an Ironman start, there's something that's echoed and resonated with that with you, and it'll help you become a better triathlete. And who knows, maybe you'll be able to take it out into your wider life and your family life and your work life as well. Because for sure at the moment, right now, today as we're recording, there's a lot of uncertainty around. A lot of my athletes are very nervous about what's going to happen during lockdown. Even the fact that pools have closed down has caused people, triggered them to be very uncertain about what's coming next. And I think we have to keep it in the day. We have to have the kind of approach Sean talked about, control the things we can control, make a list of the things that we want to do that we still can do, take a very measured approach and know that, it's not the unknown situation that it was back in March. It's very different now. So hope that conversation, as well as giving you a bit of inspiration for triathlon, also gives you a little bit of context for wider life and society at the moment as we go into this next lockdown. Okay, going into Coach's Couch this week then. Off the back, the last couple of weeks of talking about our winter training plans and the way we're going to help you get faster over winter, we spent a lot of time in the last couple of episodes talking about bike training. This week, I want to specifically address some of the ways that we approach our winter run training, answer some of the objections people have to the way that we do it, and give you a bit of a background as to why it works so well and why we tend to see the really effective results that we do that, raise a lot of people's eyebrows who don't perhaps understand or believe that the way we do things should get the results that we do. So you'll remember, quick recap, the basic view of our winter training is we're going to do our hard training on the bike and we're going to do easy training on the run. The reason that we're going to do it this way is that the bike is the safest place to do the hard work. You'll still get the heart and lungs workout working hard on the bike. That aerobic fitness, if you like, the fitness of your cardiovascular system will directly transfer over into your running and support your running fitness. So you don't have to do that traditional top end, if you want to call it speed work or interval work or hard work or intense work on the run. We don't have our athletes do any of that at all during the winter. It's all easy running. And people say there's no way people should get faster just doing easy running. Doesn't make any sense. It goes against everything I've ever read. If you look at how runners run, they always do 2 hard workouts a week on the track and a tempo run as well, maybe. So here's what I want you to get your head around. You are not a runner. You're a triathlete. Or the vast majority of you listening are triathletes anyway. So you need to train as a triathlete, train for that one sport of triathlon, and train your running the most effective way that a runner can train to be good at running in a triathlon, not to be good at running in a running race. Because you're doing hard intervals on the bike twice a week, you can't also be doing hard intervals on the run and certainly not on the swim as well. Otherwise, you're going to be doing too much hard work in a week. You'll burn out, you'll get injured, you'll get sick, you'll get ill. You won't be consistent. Okay, so if we're going to take the example of someone who's running 3 times a week, we might have them do, say, 2 runs of 30 minutes during the week and a run of 45 to 60 minutes at the weekend in the early winter. Those 2 30-minute runs are going to be continuous. They're going to be run at e-pace, which you can visit our pace calculator online at oxygenaddict.com. But e-pace basically just means, in simple terms, conversational pace. If you can hold a conversation easily with somebody as you're jogging along, great, you're at the easy pace. And think of it this way, the running is strengthening the chassis of your body. You're not trying to improve the engine size or capacity. That's getting done on the bike. We're just going to have you run and improve the durability of your run muscles, the ligaments, the tendons, to support the fact that you're not going to get injured. All of that hard work on the bike is going to condition your cardiovascular system, and that's going to transfer over into your running so that you can just consistently run all through the winter. And it kind of feels like you shouldn't get fast. It feels like you've been told you'll lose your speed, and if you lose your speed, especially as you're getting older, you'll never get it back. That has not been our experience at all in the athletes that we've trained. What we've seen is athletes come out of winter and they've not done any speed work, any fast work, any interval work, any hard hill work all through the winter time. They've done all the hard work on the bike, and yet they set PBs in 10Ks, 5Ks, half marathons in the first race back in the spring. And they think it doesn't stand to reason, but actually it does, because they've had a massive block of consistent running. The chassis is really strong. The cardiovascular system is really fit from the hard work on the bike. All that combines to mean that they go really well. Because I'm telling you now, the key to fast running and longevity in running is consistency in your run training without picking up a niggle or an injury. I'm going to quote a mate of mine. My mate Tony texted me this week. He said, I'm doing 3 5Ks a week. I don't seem to be getting any better. I watched a YouTube video that said I should do a mega hills or interval session once a week. And when I try it, I get really sore and injured, and then I have to take time off and then go back to it again. Same thing happens. What's going on? It just doesn't seem to be working for me. So my advice to him was, do all of your running at conversation pace. Forget this hard interval or hills or tempo session. Just do it at conversational pace. It'll be much more enjoyable. You'll get faster over time, and add in a hard interval session on the bike every week. And that's going to take care of, if you like, improving your aerobic fitness. So I really encourage you to give this a go. The other thing that we talk about when we talk about winter training, and I'll go into more detail of this next week, is all of your long runs, anything over, say, 45 minutes initially, I want you to add a walk break in there. I want you to walk for a minute every 10 minutes. I'm going to go into more details about the 9-1 run-walk system and the scientific basis behind it next week. But again, it's another thing that sounds counterintuitive. How is walking for a part of my run going to help me? I'm not a runner. I'm not a walker. I'm a runner. I want to be seen as a serious runner. I'm not walking during the time I'm out training. However, it is the single most important thing that you can do to help support the rest of your triathlon training during the week. And I'll go into more details about that next week. Okay, so that's wrapped up our Coach's Couch for this week. If you guys be interested in finding out more about training with us and Team Oxygen Addict, you can head on over to teamoxygenaddict.com. There's a link in the show notes to book a call with me if you want to discuss anything to do with your training and whether you'd be a good fit for training with our team. And if you want to give our bike sessions a go, you can train with us on Zwift on Tuesdays at 7:15 p.m. UK time. Just search in the Zwift companion app for the Oxygenaddict Triathlon Podcast Power Hour. We've got a workout every week that's guaranteed to raise your FTP and give you a faster, more powerful bike leg this coming season. We've had tons of great results from our athletes this week. We had, from memory, 84 members in our 100% club this week, which is incredible. 84 people got all of their key sessions ticked off and done, both in terms of intensity and duration. And if they keep ticking those off from week to week, we know that they're going to hit their goals next season. So again, we're celebrating the process, not necessarily looking at the outcome. Okay, so yeah, get in touch, have a chat with us, and see if you'll go well with the Oxygenaddict training system. And that just about brings us to the end of another show. Just to wrap things up, here are some discount codes and deals for you. At precisionhydration.com, use the code Oxygenaddict15 for 15% off your first electrolyte order. It's good stuff. At groupevolution.com, use the code Oxygenaddict15 for 15% off your luxury triathlon retreats and training camps. That's absolutely awesome. Check it out over at their French Chateau. TeamOxygenaddict.com, the most comprehensive triathlon coaching program for busy age groups. You can book a call with me via the link in the show notes. And remember, there's links in the show notes for all these sponsors, so you don't have to remember them. Until next week, have a great, safe training and racing week. I'm Coach Rob Wilby, and you've been listening to the Oxygenaddict Triathlon Podcast. See ya.